and I've been including spirituality in psychiatric care with my patients for over 30 years. I too experienced profound spiritual experiences along with brief psychotic episodes, but I was not hospitalized given the support system of my colleagues who may not have understood but were protective.
I'm Joshua Roberts, COO of Inspired Mind Mental Health LLC. I'm also a presenter with the nation's largest mental health organization, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, training in neurodiversity gifts and unpacking these new things that society is witnessing emerge. And guess what? I was hospitalized too, 6 times involuntarily against my will. Smacked the label of bipolar 1 on me, which led to all sorts of trauma and pain. And when I was hospitalized, there was very little to no exploration of the spiritual dimensions of my experience. But I learned later on, I got my master's degree in theology from Fuller Theological Seminary, that there's so much validation in world religions for these kinds of experiences. My world now is better than it ever was before. And I think we're witnessing something profound happening right here through our stories and the coming together of those stories.
It was like I would suddenly have something which will make me feel so good, so ecstatic, as if something is opening up in me. So how I understand this experience is that my psyche was going through some shift. Yeah. I was not able to make sense of it, what's going on. But there was a tremendous amount of energy that my body was not able to handle. The energy was trying to do something. It was making a shift in my mind or whatever was going on. And I was building these stories maybe that, I'm called upon something or whatever. But the whole idea is that I was not able to explain it to my husband what's going on. And he was feeling that something is wrong with me, but I was tired and I needed space or somebody whom I can trust, who can make me feel safe. And the doctor was called, who, with their permission, of course, he sedated, and I was taken to a hospital. And that was traumatic, of course. I knew what's going on. I tried to stop them. I resisted, but it was forceful. I was sedated. All we need to do is let it pass. It passes. It's not something that has to be seen with the view that we have to stop it.
I tried to introduce conversation with the psychiatrists, psychologists, and the psych nurses. I offered explanations and alternative frameworks for my mystical and spiritual experiences. However, these were seen solely through the eyes of psychopathology, through the lens of psychopathology. And in that setting, there was no room for my views and my interpretations. I was given a very dehumanizing clinical gaze as I expressed my experiences, and everything was fit into a very narrow and incorrect box to align with current diagnoses. Everything that I shared, from the depths of my soul, and these are common experiences that are very human, was looked at without any sense that there was a human being speaking. Challenging spiritual experiences are not pathological. They can require care because of their intense nature, but they are to be seen as more complex and definitely not a biomedical, or they don't have biomedical origin. So I presented this to my psychiatrist in the hospital and then to my psychologist as an outpatient, and neither of them was willing, even though it was in the DSM, to explore this. That was a dead end.
I served on the board of a temple. I had held a position. I had been the president of a condo association. I was a well-respected person. I was the person that people came to for advice. I helped other people. So I did have some credibility. And if that could happen to me, that could happen to anybody. So I do feel I do feel that this is part of my purpose. And to add to, because it's coming to me now as I'm speaking, part of what I do now is I engage in conversations with lots of people, again, still trying to draw bridges. I speak to a lot of very intellectual people. So I speak to people that are studying the brain, people that are involved in technology. I am very much wanting to have conversations with those people. So in terms of the work that we're doing, where I see it could attach to what I'm doing, are having these kind of conversations where we rethink the way we think about mental wellness. And I don't call it mental illness because personally, I think the disease model, the mental illness part, I really think that's a small fraction.
I was also placed in mental institutions. And these mental institutions did not understand either what I was going through. They had a very reductive way of looking at my process. For them, it was brain chemistry unbalance, and it had to be medicated. And they had absolutely no knowledge whatsoever about the traumas, the fears that I was processing. I also would have loved to know that I was not only processing my own traumas, and my own irrationality, but in many aspects, I was processing traumas from society and irrational way of thinking that are deep-rooted in our social structures. I didn't have that. And I was lucky I made it on the other side, because I think a lot of people without that understanding really come to believe that they are chronically mentally ill and end up spending their life on medication. And I think this is absolutely dramatic and a consequence of these reductive, materialist ways of looking at human beings and their psychology.
I too have been someone who has been labeled and diagnosed and hospitalized involuntarily against my will. I was not given any choice in taking the cocktail of the antipsychotics. I was not, in any way, shape, or form told why I needed them. I just was given them and told to take them. I know that I had several family members accusing me of having a chemical imbalance, that was the main culprit involved with why I'd had, what were considered to be delusions and hallucinations, instead of being able to be spiritually sensitive enough to sense the presence of a higher power. My only issues that I needed to work through were other people's disbelief.
Yes.
Like if I had one person in my life, one family member, one friend say, "Hey, Laura, what you're going through sounds just like, a stage, a very murky and oceanic and confusing, discombobulating stage of a spiritual awakening," I would have been like, oh, I believe that probably a whole lot of our psychiatrists in this world who are so overworked, so overwhelmed with cases, have, their quotas, whatever it be, that keeps them just in perpetual go mode, right? They probably can barely keep up with the new diagnoses and reading all these different papers and all the different, things that are happening, that the progress that's made. I would think that would be a very difficult thing to keep up with. So I would think that it's probably one of the reasons that you see labels like bipolar become so incredibly popular.
I went to school for 2 years and completed a program in psychosocial rehabilitation. And I've been around the world studying mental wealth and mental health with people from all walks of life. And I too was admitted against my will to psychiatric institutions 6 times in my 20s.
I myself experienced, I had a spiritual emergency, and I could not find any help at the time to help me with my spiritual emergency. Like many of my clients, I also felt trepidation about speaking with a helping professional. I started thinking that I was crazy, and that's the problem, right? Because there's no venue of conversation, because this hasn't been normalized, because it isn't okay to talk about this topic. You start thinking there's something wrong with you.
And I remember praying and calling out to God. I just said, take this pain away, take this fear away. I have no idea how I'm going to function to complete my master's and etc. And literally, this is the moment. In an instant, it felt like there was a lightning bolt that struck me right in my forehead. I can't explain it any other way. And all of a sudden, the pain was gone, the fear was gone, and it was like this miraculous moment. And I really didn't think a whole lot about it. It was just, this is cool.